Hey everyone. So today is Wednesday, April 13th. 2 days ago, I had the amazing pleasure of having the opportunity of going to see Judas Priest as well as Queensryche perform at Place Belle in Laval, Quebec. I almost said Laval, Montreal, but no, Laval is a different city, technically. Um, and it was the second time that I've seen Judas Priest. I saw them back in 2018 when they rolled through. They played the Bell Center that time, and they had two bands opening for them. There was the Temperance Movement and Deep Purple, and that show was fine. It was my first big arena show. It was the first time I'd ever been in a setting like that where you have to remain seated while the band is performing. Well, I mean, you don't technically have to remain seated, but it's kind of hard to move around because all the seats are full, and especially big shows like that, they're all completely packed anyways. So it was fine, but it's definitely not my preference. I don't really like going to big arena shows, and only do it because there are a lot of older bands that are really big that only ever play arena shows, and those are the only ones that I want to go to anyway. So I'm not going to have any other opportunity to see them, so I feel like, if they're playing an arena, I'll go just to say that I saw Judas Priest, just to say that, I saw Iron Maiden, who I haven't seen yet, but hopefully I do get the chance to see them soon. So I was kind of apprehensive about this show in the first place, but, I decided to go anyways. When I got there, I was surprised to see that it wasn't really sold out. In fact, there were quite a few empty seats, specifically in my segment, but I think that's because most people who wanted to go to this really pushed to get those seats up close and personal to the stage. So when you looked at the front of the stage, there was just people like everywhere. Every single one of those seats was full, but further back where I was, because we bought our tickets late, there weren't as many people. But it was nice because it meant there was a little bit more space to, just not be crammed in next to a bunch of people. So the lights went down, and Queensryche came on. And I'm not super familiar with Queensryche. I've listened to some of their material in the past. Of course, I love the song Queen of the Reich. I mean, their title track, that's a fucking banger. But to kind of prep myself for going into this, I spent the morning at work listening to 3 of their albums back to back. The first 3 that are available on Apple Music. So that is Operation Mindcrime, and then the 2 that come after that. I forget the names of them now. But they did actually play quite a few tracks from that selection of albums that I listened to, so I feel like I was pretty lucky in that regard. They opened with Queen of the Reich, which was fucking awesome, and of course they played the title track from Operation Mindcrime, which is fucking badass. Like, I really, really like that song. They also played some other songs like Shadows, and there's another track that I'm forgetting the name of that is about basically like why living in an urban center just fucking sucks ass because it's like riddled with crime and poverty. I forget the name of that song now. It might even be Shadows, for all I know. But yeah, they played those. The rest of their material I wasn't super familiar with, so it was more like I'm just here listening to this band who I'm not really familiar with play, and you know what? They're doing a damn good job. Their vocalist, he still can hit those fucking same notes, even though this band has been on the go since the 80s, if not earlier than that. They're still fucking solid. Like, they still have the ability to pull that shit off, which is awesome. Queensryche played for about an hour, and then they left. There was a little intermission. The lights came back on, of course. And I think that lasted for about 25 to 30 minutes, maybe. And then the lights went back down again. There was a big announcement. Well, I don't know if you could call it an announcement, but it was basically a speaker, like somebody who was talking, like a voiceover, basically pre-recorded, delivering some like sermon, I guess you could call it. And at the end of the sermon, like the last words that he said was, "I am fucking heavy metal," but it's all in this like really deep, distorted voice, which is super fucking cheesy and corny as fuck, but I love it all the same. It's just so campy, and I mean, Judas Priest is nothing if not campy, let's be honest. So the giant cross logo that they have like a huge iron, like metal version of that, and it's like raised up to the ceiling, and as this voiceover is playing, this cross just kind of descends and faces outwards towards the crowd, and it ignites in red and orange lights, and then the band comes out and they start with One Shot at Glory, which is a song that I would not expect them to open with. That's like a lesser known, lesser popular track from Painkiller, but Painkiller is a fucking amazing record. I mean, that's like a 10 out of 10 album for me, so the fact that they opened with a song from that, and like a deep cut from that record as well, is incredible, honestly. And they fucking killed it too. They played a bunch of other songs, of course. You know, they're really big hits, the ones that they're super well known for, like You Got Another Thing Coming, Free Will Burning, Hellbent for Leather, Electric Eye, Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, Painkiller. Some of these songs they played for the encore, but they had a real good selection of songs spanning their entire discography. Like even Turbo Lover, which is a record that most people don't like. But I feel like Turbo Lover is getting a lot more love these days. I feel like people who once, you know, shit on this record are kind of returning to it and being like, yeah, you know what, it's actually not that bad. I mean, I would count myself among those people. I personally think Turbo Lover is a pretty decent record. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it gets. And they played some other songs that are considered Judas Priest classics, even though I'm not super familiar with them, like The Green Manalishi, which I understand is a Fleetwood Mac cover. They played that, and they played Victim of Changes, and these are songs from Judas Priest records that I haven't really delved into that much, because I've listened to them a couple times, and they just don't have that same oomph that some of their other material has, like Screaming for Vengeance, Painkiller, British Steel, and Firepower, which like their most recent record. Those are like the top 4 Judas Priest albums for me. So the other records, the stuff from that, I'm not as familiar with, and they played a few songs from that, so it was kind of like, I'm not super into this, but I'm going to sit here and listen to it anyway because I fucking love this band. Now the thing that impressed me the most is that even at 70 years old, Rob Halford still fucking got it, man. Like, last time they came through, back in 2018, I was already impressed at that point that he still had the vocal chops to pull this shit off. But he's 70 now, and there's two parts throughout this concert that gave me chills. One was at the end of Victim of Changes, he let out an insanely high-pitched scream that just like lasted for a while, and he nailed that note. It sent shivers up my spine. It was fucking incredible. They also played A Touch of Evil, also from Painkiller, and there's that part in the song where all the instruments drop out just for a minute, and he says, "You're possessing me," but like obviously in the really high fucking pitched Rob Halford voice. He nailed that shit like perfectly, like just flawless victory. You know, if this would have been one of those fucking Guitar Hero or Rock Band tracks, like he would have FC'd it, as we used to say back in the day. Just incredible. I was not expecting him to be able to do that, but it's clear that he takes very, very good care of himself, and he has to in order to keep up this incredibly consistent touring schedule. I mean, Judas Priest has been touring for 50 fucking years now at this point, which is just mind-blowing, but I feel proud to say that I was there to see this band this many years later, a legendary act, one of the best metal bands to ever live, one of the most influential, and one of my favorite. It was just all around an incredible performance. The only downside that I have to say is that there was some issues with the sound mixing, which obviously that's not the band's fault, that's the people who are doing the sound, that's their fault. They, for some reason, decided to mix Scott Travis's drum set really weird. So he'd be doing a regular beat, you know, on the hi-hat, just and it would sound fine, and then he'd go into a roll, but for some reason they mixed the floor toms to be like just bombastically loud in comparison to the rest of the kit. So he'd be like, and it was just so like off-putting and really, really distracting, and it it like hurt my ears to listen to it. So whoever mixed the sound like did it, like they fucked up. They did fix it after about 3 or 4 songs, but for those first 4 songs or so, it was messed. There was also some issues with the guitars where they sounded a little fuzzy, which is not the sound that you want for a Judas Priest show. This is not stoner rock. This is not doom metal. Get those fuzzed out guitars out of here. We want clean, cutting 80s heavy metal. So they did also fix that later, but yeah, it just seemed like it got off to a rocky start in regards to the sound, which is unfortunate, but they fixed it, so the rest of the show was fine. And you know, they played for like an hour to an hour and a half, something like that. It was a pretty long set. I was a little disappointed that they didn't play more cuts from Firepower, but this wasn't a tour in support of Firepower. They played more songs from that record the last time they came through. This was a tour celebrating the fact that they've been touring for 50 fucking years. So of course they played songs that spanned their entire discography from Rock'n'Rolla all the way up to Firepower. So yeah, I thought it was a fucking awesome show. I'm really, really glad that I got to see it, and that's all I got to say about it. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, and if you like the content that's on this channel, then please hit subscribe down below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.